Imagine tasting chocolate every time you hear someone say your name. Imagine seeing flashes of indigo blue whenever the number 5 appears before you. Imagine feeling the texture of velvet when you listen to a violin, or smelling cinnamon when you read the word home. To most people, that sounds like science fiction, like a surreal trick of the mind. But to those who live with it, this isn't fantasy. It's daily reality. This is the world of synesthesia, an extraordinary crossing of senses where boundaries blur, and the ordinary becomes endlessly fascinating. Synesthesia has puzzled scientists, fascinated artists, and left those who experience it wondering, am I unusual, gifted, or perhaps misunderstood? At its core, synesthesia is a neurological condition, or more accurately, a neurological trait, where the stimulation of one sense triggers an automatic, involuntary experience in another. The very word itself comes from the Greek, syn, meaning together, and aesthesis, meaning sensation. Put simply, it's when senses blend. But this is not just about quirky experiences. Synesthesia reveals something profound about the human brain, about creativity, and perhaps about how perception itself is not fixed, but fluid. And once you understand how synesthesia works, you'll never look at your own senses in quite the same way again. What if the way you see the world right now, the colors, the sounds, the textures, is only one possible version of reality? And what if, for millions of people, that reality is richer, stranger, and more layered than we can imagine? That's exactly what synesthesia forces us to confront. There are many different forms of synesthesia, each fascinating in its own right. One of the most common is grapheme color synesthesia, where letters and numbers are shaded in vibrant, consistent colors. To someone with this form, the letter A might always be red, B might always be blue, and C might always be yellow, every time, without fail. They don't choose the colors. The association is automatic, as natural as breathing. Another is chromesthesia, where sounds trigger colors. Imagine a trumpet blast bursting into gold sparks before your eyes, or a piano's soft notes blooming into blues and purples across your mental canvas. But synesthesia doesn't stop there. There are rarer forms like lexical gustatory synesthesia, where words evoke tastes. For instance, the word table might taste like scrambled eggs, or the name Sarah might taste like mint. There's spatial sequence synesthesia, where numbers or days of the week are visualized in physical space, almost like a mental map surrounding the body. Even mirror touch synesthesia, where seeing someone else touched makes the person literally feel that touch on their own body. For those with it, empathy isn't just emotional, it's physical. Now, here's where it gets really intriguing. Studies estimate that around 4% of the population may have some form of synesthesia, though many never realize it has a name. For them, it's simply the way the world has always been. They may not even realize others don't experience reality the same way. Imagine growing up thinking every child sees music explode into colors, only to discover later that this isn't universal. So what causes synesthesia? Neuroscientists believe it stems from increased crosstalk between brain regions that are normally more separated. For example, in grapheme color synesthesia, the brain area responsible for recognizing letters and numbers sits right next to the brain's color processing area. In synesthetes, the wiring seems more connected, or less inhibited, allowing one region's activation to spill over into the other. It's like the brain's neural pathways are playing jazz, improvising connections where most brains stick to the sheet music. But here's the kicker. Synesthesia isn't random chaos. It's consistent. If someone with grapheme color synesthesia sees the letter A as red today, they will see it as red 10 years from now. The associations are stable, personal, and deeply ingrained. That's what separates synesthesia from imagination or metaphor. When a poet says, "Her voice was velvet," they're speaking figuratively. When a synesthete says, "Her voice felt like velvet," they mean it literally. Their nervous system delivers that sensation automatically. Could it be that synesthesia isn't just a quirk, but a hidden key to human creativity? Some of history's most brilliant artists, musicians, and writers are thought to have had synesthesia. Composer Franz Liszt was famous for telling his orchestra to play a little bluer, leaving musicians baffled but revealing his own sound-to-color experiences. Wassily Kandinsky, the abstract painter, described hearing colors and seeing music. Pharrell Williams, Lady Gaga, and Billie Eilish have all spoken openly about their synesthetic perception of music. It begs the question, is synesthesia partly responsible for groundbreaking creativity, giving artists access to layers of sensory richness the rest of us can only guess at? Yet, not all synesthetes see it as a gift. Some find it overwhelming or distracting. Imagine trying to focus on reading when every letter is bursting with color overlays, or trying to enjoy a concert when every note is blasting vivid imagery across your mind's eye. Some even find certain associations unpleasant. Imagine if the sound of your friend's voice always tasted like spoiled milk. That's not always a blessing. But even here, psychology teaches us something deeper. Synesthesia reminds us that perception is not objective. It's filtered, subjective, and constructed by the brain. Your red may not be my red. Your silence may not be my silence. Synesthesia simply takes that relativity to a dramatic extreme. And it asks us to reconsider. How much of what we call reality is simply the brain's personal translation? If synesthetes experience overlapping senses, could it be that we all have faint traces of synesthesia? Subtle crossovers we simply don't notice? After all, don't we all sometimes feel a color, or taste a memory, or hear the warmth in someone's voice? Could synesthesia be less of an exception and more of an amplification of something universal? Researchers have even explored whether synesthesia is linked to memory advantages. Some synesthetes report extraordinary recall because their associations create extra hooks. For example, if a phone number isn't just digits but also a sequence of colors, it becomes easier to memorize. It's like encoding information in high definition. Could this explain why some synesthetes excel in fields that demand creativity and pattern recognition? Possibly. But again, there's nuance. Some report that the flood of sensory overlap can be distracting, making simple tasks more complicated. Another fascinating angle is development. Many children seem to display synesthetic tendencies early in life, blurring colors, shapes, and sounds. But most outgrow it. This has led scientists to propose that babies may all start with more interconnected sensory experiences, and pruning during development reduces these connections. In other words, synesthetes may simply retain some of that early wiring. If that's true, then synesthesia isn't alien at all. It's a glimpse into the mind we all once had. So what does this mean for you and me? Even if you're not synesthetic, understanding this phenomenon expands your perspective. It reminds you that your senses, the very foundation of how you interpret the world, are not fixed, they're constructed. Reality is richer, stranger, and more subjective than we realize. And this has a profound implication. Maybe creativity, empathy, and imagination all draw from a similar source: the brain's ability to connect the unconnected. This brings us to empathy. Mirror-touch synesthesia, where one literally feels what others feel, offers a haunting metaphor. What if empathy itself is a kind of synesthesia? An overlap between perceiving the other and perceiving the self. When someone else's suffering stings in your chest, isn't that a blending of boundaries too? Perhaps synesthesia isn't just about color and sound. It's about connection. The crossing of senses might mirror the crossing of selves. If synesthesia is real, and if it reveals the brain's hidden potential, what other sensory dimensions might exist that we haven't even discovered yet? Could there be other humans walking among us, quietly experiencing layers of perception we can't fathom, smelling emotions, hearing time, tasting truth? Science doesn't rule it out. After all, our understanding of the brain is still in its infancy. In the end, synesthesia is more than a neurological curiosity. It's a reminder that perception is infinite. For some, the world is not 5 senses. It's 6 or 7, or a kaleidoscope of endless overlap. And for us, even if we don't live with synesthesia, we can still learn from it. We can learn to look at the world not as rigid, but as fluid. Not as fixed, but as alive with hidden connections. So the next time you hear a song, ask yourself, what color does it feel like? The next time you see a word, ask, what taste does it carry? You may not be a synesthete, but you may discover a little more creativity, a little more empathy, and a little more wonder hiding in your senses than you ever realized. Because maybe the greatest gift of synesthesia isn't the colors, or the tastes, or the textures. It's the reminder that reality is far bigger than the boxes we place it in. And the more open we are to those overlaps, the richer and more human our experience becomes. If this journey into the world of synesthesia opened something in you, if it made you think differently about your own senses, your own creativity, then don't stop here. Hit the like button so more people can join the conversation. Subscribe for more explorations into the psychology and philosophy of being human. And share this video with someone who could use a reminder that the world is stranger, more beautiful, and more interconnected than we think. Because sometimes, it takes looking through someone else's senses to truly awaken our own.